Views and opinions of any of the guests of After Hours AM are not necessarily the views and opinions of After Hours AM, its hosts, its staff, or any of its affiliates.
Welcome to the After Hours program.
Are you
Now broadcasting live from the After Hours AM studio, Joel Sturgis and Eric Olsen.
And we had a devil child. Devil child got going out. The boy that hated farewell. Devil child got sold to buy. My baby had a devil child. She got horns on her head and a head on fire. Demon see the night through the wish of his eye. A dead child of guns, blood, her favorite drink. A child to the devil's card. Devil child got going.
And good evening, everybody. Welcome to this edition of After Hours AM. I'm your host, Joel Sturgis. I do not know where Mr. Eric Olsen is at the moment. He may pop in here. Who knows?
Bro.
Wow. Talk about cutting her close, razor thin, my friend. I was all ready to go solo. I had a wonderful EVP presentation planned for the first hour. And then you showed up.
Sorry.
I'm kidding, of course. Just kidding. No, I'm glad you are here, man. I'm glad you were. I take it you're struggling with technology.
Yes, more struggles. The Skype password wasn't working, and I put it back in over and over and over, and about the fifth time, it worked.
Don't you love that? Don't you just love that when technology runs a book?
I didn't even know it was closed. I thought it was already open. But here I am. Yes, I heard you call my name, and wait, I'm here.
You know, and that's the thing is sometimes technology does run amok. Hey, man, before we kind of jump into what I kind of want to tackle this first half hour, and that's really kind of time slips and moments in time where the paranormal and we meet, we collide inadvertently. Did you see that they had to shut down an entire AI robot system? Did you see that?
No, tell me
because
about it.
It created its own language.
Oh, no.
You know what that means?
I
Skynet. And that's true. That I covered that
Overlord
earlier this week, and I looked at that thinking, wow, man, you know, how much longer? It's funny that we're having a show tonight with Dave Cole tonight talking about VR, and he'll be on second hour, of course, and that's another technology that's emerging, but also the technology of the, you know, we always thought it was scientific or science fiction that we would never have free-thinking computers, but here we have artificial intelligence on the horizon. Crazy.
It's more than on the horizon. It's just not that developed yet, but we already have programs that are beating the absolute top players in the world at chess and at the Chinese game Go. I mean, we've crossed some sort of threshold.
Do we want it to develop? I mean, that's the whole thing. Do we want that to happen?
I don't think we want them to develop their own language that we don't even know.
I mean, how do you shut down a computer that's infinitely smarter than you are as the creator?
I think the issue is, the real key here is self-awareness. As soon as the computer, as soon as the program, the robot, whatever, becomes self-aware, oh boy, we got problems.
We do. And a lot of them. So that is, of course, something that's been floating around the interwebs talking about that. I tracked it down. It is factual. No fake news here. That actually did happen, by the way.
Wow.
They had to shut
Where
that
was
down.
That?
I want to say UCLA. and they ended up having to shut it down before it got too smart for its own good.
Dang.
I'm
going to have to look into that, because that really does sound like crossing yet another crazier threshold.
It's kind of a scary, scary thing, man. Scary thing. But, we were talking earlier, getting ready for the show, and a lot of times we have discussions off the air. They're almost more fascinating than the ones that we have on the air. And it's funny how we stumble into that, just a normal conversation. And you and I were talking, must have been a couple weeks ago, that you had a period in your life where it was just crazy paranormal. I mean, every time you turn around, there was something new happening with the paranormal, and then, boop, it stopped. And that really intrigues me. I mean, why do you think that was happening to you at that time?
Well, it's a very good question in terms of why it was happening. Probably more relevant or even more germane is, I think, really my whole life up to that point, I was quite open to the paranormal. I didn't know that it was paranormal. I had a lot of confusion between what we would now call paranormal and religious aspects. And as we've discussed many times, you and I both were raised good Lutheran boys. So I was really quite concerned about the morality or the safety of interacting or even acknowledging these entities, because I wasn't sure what they were. Was this coming from God? Was this coming from Satan? Was this something else entirely? It was all very confusing to me. So I really had a lot of input. There were times when I would be at church, just for example, when I would feel this overwhelming I suppose the spirit coming over me, and I would be feel compelled, for example, to speak out loud, which at that age I found horrifying in terms of during a service, to speak out loud or start singing out loud, and it was really frightening. I'd have to really tamp it down, and it was such an odd thing. And then when I was just in normal life, quote unquote, just at home and whatnot, there were a lot of times when I was in bed and I really could feel the presence of unseen forces. Plus, beyond that, every time throughout my entire life until all of this sort of ended in my early 20s as I was graduating high school and I got married and moved away and started my career and went out into the real world and all that. And I think that was some combination of those factors is why things stopped. I think I switched it off in my mind on some level, some conscious, subconscious level. I turned it off and I said, I'm not going to receive this anymore. I'm grown up. I'm an adult now. I have responsibilities. I can't be distracted by all this nonsense. Besides, even by then, I was still very concerned about what is the source of this. If I open myself up to this, am I opening myself up to demonic or satanic entities?
Eric, what was the most chilling thing that happened to you during this period of your life?
Well, probably the most powerful thing that happened, it wasn't so much chilling, although certainly it was chilling at the time, was the experience I had in my dorm room as a freshman in college the night my grandmother died by herself, unfortunately alone, 2,500 miles away in California. I was in Ohio, and I was in southern Ohio. My mother was at home in the Cleveland area. So here we were, both of us about 2,500 miles away from my grandmother and, of course, her mother, and then my mother and I were 200 miles apart. And as it turned out, simultaneously, my mother and I had the exact same experience in the middle of the night where we both woke up out of an absolute deep sleep, just woke up bolt upright. I looked across my dorm room. I saw a figure that was darker than the darkness in the room. The figure worked its way across the room.
That's not good, man.
No, probably not. It worked. The figure, the darkness, the darker darkness worked its way across the room until it was literally enveloped me. It enclosed me. And during that time, it felt like minutes, hours, days. I'm sure it was seconds. But during that time period, I couldn't move. I was utterly frozen. I couldn't even breathe. I felt this strange tingling. It was a really, really weird, strange feeling. And then as soon as it had come upon me, as instantly as it had come upon me, it was gone. It just vanished. And I returned to quote unquote normal, went right back to sleep. The next morning, my mother called and said, that my grandmother had died. And we started talking, and I told her, wow, that's so weird. What time was that? Do we know? Or anything like that. And I told her what had happened to me, and she said the exact same thing happened to her.
Really?
And this happened, so it appears it happened exactly at the time my grandmother was dying. As we discussed it, we said we are hoping that the feelings that we had somehow took away from the fear or pain or discomfort that she would have had. She had a heart attack. And that we somehow, hopefully, we know we shared it, but we hope maybe we even took it away from her and we bore it instead of her. That is our hope. And that was the feeling that we had after the fact. We both had some dreams, not real specific dreams, but kind of vague dreams where we both had the sensation that perhaps we actually took those feelings away from her and spared her that. And I to this day, I hope that is the case. So that was the most intense, profound paranormal experience I've had my entire life.
I would agree with you. That is very profound and very shocking, to have that happen to you and then to find out that really, quite honestly, seems to relate to your grandmother passing. And that...
the timing was
it was perfect. I've heard similar tales of people that have said, "Hey, this has happened when a loved one dies, different ways. Not exactly that one, but it's a lot of times there is a sign involved that they just somehow recognize but don't recognize all at once."
Right, exactly. And again, this was something I did not make the connection at the time. But certainly by that next morning, this experience of going through all that, it's our most fervent wish that we were able to kind of offload, to use current terminology, away from my mother. As far as most disturbing experience, and this was within that same year, this was later, my freshman year at Wittenberg University in Springfield, Ohio. My girlfriend and I, this was the spring, I believe, were driving across town. We had been up really late, doing the usual college stuff, drinking, partying, whatever, running
all
around,
the fun stuff,
being lunatics. Got up really late. We were kind of, a little fuzzy, a little hungover. Not too bad because we slept in so late, but we decided we didn't want to get the usual pizza that was just right down the street, and we didn't want to get the Domino's delivery that we got so often. So we were driving to a different pizza place all the way across town. So we're driving across town, and this story, we've told before on the show, but like my experience with my grandmother. But every time, boy, it gives me the creeps. So I'm driving along. We're at a stoplight. And this is not a divided road, but I think at that point it's probably 4-lane. I believe they're 2 lanes each way. It's a fairly major road.
It was a highway,
but it's not a highway. It's just a major road through town. So there's a lot of stoplights. So we had just stopped at a light. I'm coming. The light turned green. I pull forward, so I'm going slowly because I'm just coming out of a full stop. Out of the corner of my eye, the right corner, so on the sidewalk to my right as I'm driving forward, I see some sort of figure that just catches my eye. I look over at the figure, and it's this bizarre, short, kind of thick, squatty woman of really indeterminate age. She could have been anything from probably 40s to 80s. You just couldn't tell.
Well, did she wave or did she do anything in your direction? Was there any kind of communication?
Not that I noticed. I did not notice any direct gesturing or anything. But when I looked over at her, her eyes were utterly fixed on mine. Boring into my soul through my eyes.
That's not good.
It was startling and horrifying. To make it worse, to make it even weirder, she had this extreme, exaggerated, frozen, evil-looking smile on her face, like the Joker. I looked it up. It's called a rictus.
What was she?
This huge, frozen, freakish smile.
What was she wearing, if I can ask you? What kind of clothes? Were they old clothes, new clothes? Did she look contemporary, or did she look like somebody from the past?
Again, kind of indeterminate. It was kind of a bulky, larger, brownish, tannish.
I know what you mean.
Indistinct. Dress type thing, or kind of a house coat type dress. I do remember seeing her legs, which were very stocky, and she was wearing kind of like support hose, and she had old fashioned, women's sensible shoes on.
So you're sitting there and you're witnessing Joker's ugly sister.
I am witnessing Joker's freakish, staring, boring holes into my soul through my eyes. Joker's really bizarre, indeterminate age sister.
All that stuff all wrapped into one.
Very short and very squatty. Okay?
Okay.
All right.
So go ahead. What happens?
I take a very brief moment, to glance over at my girlfriend who's traveling with me.
Does she see her? Does the girlfriend see her? Okay.
She is also staring at her. I said, do you see that? She said, yeah. I said, she's staring at you too? Yes. I can't take my eyes away. So she somehow had us both transfixed. All right. So I'm driving, so I got to look back at the road. So I turn my head back. I break contact with her. At least I think so. So I'm looking at the road. Got to make sure I'm moving at that point.
Sure.
I was still kind of slowly accelerating, but by then I was probably up to maybe 15, maybe even 20 miles an hour. All right, so I look back over, and she wasn't where she had been before. I see her now moving quickly like a freaking cheetah at me, bounding at me, staring at me again.
At the same time, she's running and staring now.
She's staring. She's bounding, moving very swiftly, right at me. She's coming right at the car. I veer to the left. She bounces off the front right side of the car. She kind of rolls along the side of the car. You can hear the...
So you actually make physical contact with her, with the vehicle.
With her. The front right corner, just behind it. So I didn't hit her with the corner of the car, just behind it on the passenger side. She slammed into the car, not really hard, but hard.
Yeah.
And kind of rolled along and then kind of bounced off the end of the car, right? So this is weird enough, but then, of course, and I had to veer in order for her to not run smack dab into the front of the car. So I had to veer left. So now I'm having to swerve back right because I had swerved across the center line, and I'm trying to control the car and not get in an accident, not get killed, meanwhile wondering what on earth is going on. So I turn back around, okay? I see her, and she's staring at me with that smile on her face.
Wait. You hit her with the car.
Okay,
I'm just trying to absorb all this because these are all things I didn't hear before. I didn't really process before. You hit the lady with the car. We're going to assume it's a lady.
It was a glancing blow.
Okay, it's a glancing blow on the quarter panel of the car.
Right, on the passenger side.
On the passenger side, okay. You hit her hard enough to where... And folks, you have to remember, this is in the 70s. Cars were all steel in those days. There was no give to these vehicles at all. So she hits the glancing blow. You make contact with her. You hear the thud. You feel the thud. You look in your rearview mirror. She's standing there staring yet again?
Standing with her feet planted in the middle of my lane, where in other words, where I had just hit her. And she's pointing, and she has that smile on her face. And, I mean, her eyes were just evil. I turn back.
Yeah.
To look at the road again. I glance, away from the rearview mirror, right? I look back. She's gone. Now I'm like, oh no! I pulled over to the side. I stopped. We both looked back. We stared. She had simply vanished. There was no way. There was no time for her to have run in to one of the storefronts or to an alley or whatever. This was a commercial district, or I should say a shopping district. So there were stores and a block long, kind of like a strip mall along the road where each store is connected to the other. There's no gaps in between. There was simply no time for her to have run from the middle of that lane into a store or anywhere else and disappeared in the split second between when I took my eye off the rearview mirror, pulled over really quickly, and remember, I wasn't going that fast, braked, pulled over, stopped, looked back. She is utterly vanished. What do
you think, though? What do you think it was? Now that you can look back, doing all these shows, talking to all these different people, different theories, what do you believe that was that you saw that day?
Because of the physicality, I still have a hard time believing, at least because I haven't experienced it, that a spirit, a human spirit, a ghost, could be that material, that could become that real in our world. So I don't think it was just a ghost. Was it some sort of demonic figure? It's possible. It certainly looked she certainly looked evil as hell, had a just crazed expression and eyes that were just black. And I'm not going to call it a black-eyed. I don't think
I know what you mean. I know exactly.
I don't think they were literally black, but the eyes is just, there was like nothing there.
Was there any physical damage in the car?
There was a little bit. You could see where there was a bit of indentation, kind of on and off, kind of where she'd gone bump, 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 along the side of the car. No real damage, but certainly you could see where something had touched the car, rolled along the car, and there was clear evidence that the car had been touched. My guess is, if I had to guess, I think that this really was, pure speculation, some sort of interdimensional or even, inter-universe slip. And that somehow that there was some, whether it be a vortex, I mean, who knows?
But it sure seemed targeted.
Targeted.
It wasn't like it was happenstance where, she's as, crazied out to see you as you are to see her. She stared. She locked eyes. There was intent there.
Couldn't have been more calm. Couldn't have been more menacing. And she came running right at the front of the car. She wanted to run into the front of a moving car. It was only the fact that I swerved to the left that caused it to be a glancing blow and not a head-on smashing collision. But that disappearance, the fact that she utterly vanished into thin air, I just don't see what it could have been other than, escaping literally into another dimension, into another alternative universe. I don't know what.
But Eric, maybe you entered in another dimension.
And that is possible as well. It really is, because like I said, we were feeling kind of weird, feeling kind of fuzzy. We've been up really late. I don't think we got up that afternoon till 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and just kind of got staggered out of bed, got in there. Everything felt weird about that journey from the time we got in the car. The sun wasn't right. It was overcast in a weird way. The light wasn't right. Everything was very strange that day. So yeah, it's possible. I guess that we literally entered some sort of alternative reality and then blipped back into our own. I mean, anything's possible, but I assure you the things that are the most real to me are the look on her face, the bizarre, horrifying, frozen grin on her face, the fact that she bounced off the car, and the fact that she acknowledged that this has happened by pointing and by seemingly staring even harder, if that's possible, grinning even more evilly, if that's possible.
So there was no...
And then disappearing.
Man, I think this is what happened. This is what I think what happened. Is you and your girlfriend went into another dimension. Now, the reason why I say that is not because the woman right off, but because everything was strange. Now, you know better than anyone else your environment, day in and day out, living where you live, okay? You know how your environment should feel. Now, you're saying that the whole day, or at least this journey, nothing felt right. Everything felt just slightly amiss, right?
Yes, exactly.
And so you go about your merry way, and you end up seeing this thing, woman, thing, whatever you want to call it, on the side of the road, which she did not sound... It doesn't sound like she was shocked to see you at all.
No.
You know, it wasn't like one of these moments of, holy crap, what am I looking at? You know, where she's as shocked as you are to see her. It was more like you kind of crossed over into, for lack of a better word, I guess the Twilight Zone there for a minute. And ran into this lady quite literally. And maybe just as soon as you ran into her, you came out of it. Now, did things seem different after you hit the lady with the glancing blow and she was no longer in your rearview mirror? Did things go back to normal? Did things feel normal after that?
Well, I'm not sure they felt normal, but...
I mean, your environment. Did it seem normal again?
Yes. It felt like we had... Like a switch had been flipped almost, something like that, and that we were returned to the fact that she was gone, traffic was moving again normally, everything seemed to be back to normal. We didn't feel normal. We felt weird as hell, and we really just barely said a word to each other the whole way to that pizza place. It was such a strange thing, but yes, the environment, the milieu, the ambient reality around us did seem to return to quote unquote normal after she disappeared.
Well, it's funny you mention all that normalcy after she disappeared, because I've gotten emails from people that allegedly been abducted by aliens. And they've said very similar things. That it just didn't seem right. It didn't seem like my home. It didn't seem like where I'm used to. And we ran into this, or this, we saw that, or something like that happens. Usually involves gray aliens in these emails. But as soon as the grays leave and everything goes back, it's like it gets set back normally after you had this experience. I'm honestly thinking that you and your girlfriend at the time, I think you were smack dab in a dimensional shift, and you drove into that shift. You woke up into that shift, and you left. Nothing was correct. You saw the hag. I'm going to call her the hag for lack of a better term.
Oh, she was hag-like.
Saw the hag,
sure.
Hit the hag with a glancing blow of the car. She bounced off the car. You look in the rearview mirror. There she is. You look back for a second. Look back in the rearview mirror, and she's gone, and everything seemed normal. That's classic dimensional shift right there. Very classic.
Wow. Well, that certainly could be it, and that could have been what happened. It was so odd, and it was so disorienting. The thing that I remember the most, that's most vivid of all, was just the sheer malevolence of this thing. And why is she running
why is
right
she evil?
At me?
Exactly. Now, that begged the question of why is she evil? Or why does she at least look menacing? Why the aggression?
I have no idea. I really don't. But I felt utterly chilled. I felt there was no question she was coming right for me. She wanted to get at me. She was menacing me. It really was very, very strange.
Wow.
And I'll never. It was so vivid. And when I think about it now, it just, drives me insane. I really, really find it. When I cast myself back there and use my memory and really try to put myself back in that situation, I can just feel that malevolence again. I can see that face so clearly, even though it was kind of a nondescript face, it's just one of those slumpy faces that could be kind of any age, kind of not distinct kind of faces. Could be anything from middle-aged to old-aged. Very hard to determine that. And so nondescript, other than the features of the bizarre, malevolent smile and those piercing eyes. I really felt like she/it was literally peering into my soul and gaining knowledge about me as she was staring at me and had me absolutely fixed in her gaze. Yet at the same time, she had, my girlfriend in the same situation.
Yeah, she was doing
How
both.
could she do that to both of us?
And the thing of it is the way that you describe the day leading up to those events is really the big story right there. Is nothing felt right.
Yep.
Nothing felt correct. Everything just seemed a little miss, like you're in an alternative world, so to speak. And you really might have been in an alternative dimension. Maybe you were in the dimension where the other Eric Olsen was. You see what I'm saying? You might have merged with yourself there momentarily. There's a lot of theories behind that. If you have your own theory about what happened to Eric, give us an email. We'd love to hear it. AfterHoursAM@gmail.com. Do that, and, maybe you have the answer. We got to run a break. We come back. We'll be right back, though. We got more stuff to cover. And then top of the hour, man, we talk VR with NextVR CEO Dave Cole. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back right after this. After Hours AM will be right back after these messages.
Ranger Station, Ranger speaking.
Yeah, hi. I'd like to report a bear sighting.
Location.
My backyard.
Oh, your backyard. Try telling a bear that.
I did, and this bear talked back.
Talking bear, that's rich.
No, wait, it was Smokey Bear.
Smokey? Why didn't you say so?
I did say so.
Continue.
I was burning yard waste.
No, boy.
He told me to burn legally and responsibly, and to remember that if it's too hot to touch, it's too hot to leave.
And as always, he's right. 9 out of 10 wildfires are caused by humans. That means 9 out of 10 wildfires can be prevented.
Yeah, I know that now.
Thanks to me.
Actually, thanks to Smokey.
As usual, the talking bear gets all the credit. Get your Smokey on. Always burn responsibly and contact your local fire department for open burning regulations. Because 9 out of 10 wildfires can be prevented. Brought to you by Smokey Bear, the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council. Learn more at smokeybear.com.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
This is Jen McGowan, founder of Wayward Souls Promotions, a company dedicated to helping individuals, teens, radio shows, and others that are seeking exposure for their individual events, conventions, and shows. We offer a wide variety of advertising, such as web-based article, social media posts, podcast advertisement, and so on. Contact us at paranormalpromotion@gmail.com, visit us on Facebook at Wayward Souls Promotions, and visit our website at www.waywardsoulspromotions.com.
Welcome back to After Hours AM. And welcome back to After Hours AM, everybody. And I'm your host, Joel Sturgis, right along with me,
Eric Olsen. Wow, that was some creepy-ass music.
That was actually our friends at Midnight Syndicate shipped that over to me. And they got some new music out, and they said, hey, man, throw this in the rotation for your bumpers. So I said, absolutely, I will. So that's some new Midnight Syndicate. They're getting ready to unleash a whole new album. You know, we are actually getting pretty close to Halloween season, whether you know it or not. We're already in August. Crazy. So we're almost there. We're almost there. But, you know, you were talking about what happened to you with your gremlin lady. Well, you know, I've had a couple weird things happen to me, but I'll tell you what, the strangest one that sticks with me to this day is I was about 8 years old. And back in those days, okay, let me set the stage a little bit. I was 8 years old. My sisters that are 5 years older than I am, that would have made them right around 13. They were watching me as my parents went out on the town. Back in those days, they used to have dance clubs. Everyone go dance. You know what I'm talking about, back in the early 80s. And so they went out on the town, and we used to live in the creepiest freaking old house you could ever think of. Oh my God, that thing, just creepy, right? It looks like something right out of Central Casting for a haunted house, you know. And so one of my older sisters says, "Hey, you know, it's 11 o'clock. You better go get your pajamas on and get ready for bed." And I was watching TV, and of course, you know what that's like. Mom and Dad are gone. I want to stay up as long as I possibly can.
Maybe even till like 9 o'clock.
Maybe even till then. And so I begrudgingly went upstairs, and my room was adjoining my parents' room, and their door was open, and I could see inside of their room. And I climbed the steps, and I looked over. I don't know why my head shot right like it did. It was like an automatic. I looked that way. And there's something sitting on their bed, Eric.
Oh, my goodness.
It is the blackest figure I have ever seen in my life. But to top it off, and this is, of course, cliche, but this is really what it was. There was red eyes involved.
Oh, no.
And I remember staring at it. We were locked. Our gazes were locked. It felt like, much like your curmudgeon lady. It was like we were locked.
Curmudgeon, I like that.
It was like we were locked, right? And I couldn't get off its gaze. It just had me right there. And it was huge. I mean, huge. Imagine Shaquille O'Neal only times 12. This thing was huge, right? And it's staring at me, and I'm staring at it. I don't know what I'm looking at. All I know is and then I feel the warm urine going down my leg. I'm not too proud to say that. I pissed myself that night. But then again, I was only 8, so give me a little bit of, I was only 8. But I was looking at this thing, and it was looking at me, and actually it seemed surprised to see me in some ways. It was almost as if I'd walked up on it. It was not expecting me. And I came up, and I kind of shocked it. It shocked me. We locked gazes for it seemed like hours. It really did. But in reality, it's probably, maybe 20 seconds.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, this thing gets up. It stands up, Eric. And it's taller than the ceiling.
Was it bent over?
It just merged itself as it stood up into the framework.
Going.
Yes. And it left. Woof. Just left. Just like that.
Wow.
But then weird crap just started unleashing for me after that. Just weird things. It was like, now you know I'm here, so now I'm really going to make your life hard. And, just things, bad things, little bad things, I don't know, back in those days, the bike, its brakes not working. Weird stuff like that. But then, later on, let's flash forward a few years. I was 23 years old, and I was cruising down a major highway. It's called U.S. Highway 53 near us. It's a 4-lane highway. You go 70 miles an hour on it. And a buddy of mine and I were cruising down this highway. And he was next to a semi. It's a 4-lane, so we're in the left lane. And the semi's in the right lane. Well, that semi decides to come into the left lane, evidently not seeing us, that we're in this little car, and not seeing that we're right next to him. So the buddy of mine veers off, right, to his left. Well, his tires catch the soft dirt on the shoulder, and we end up rolling that car, Eric,
oh my God.
7 or 8 times. Boom, 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 boom. I didn't even have my seatbelt on. Didn't have my seatbelt on. The window was rolled down. But the weirdest thing was, during this whole thing, tumbling and tumbling and tumbling and tumbling, I never moved.
Wow.
And I remember...
You never moved
the car? Inside the car, I didn't rock back and forth like you would expect. I sat there perfectly upright the whole time. And even the EMT showed up. They said, you should have been dead. Window rolled down, no seatbelt on. You should have been thrown out of that car.
So I'm trying to visualize. You stayed
in the vehicle,
line with what the car was doing, or the car kind of revolved around you?
The car kind of seemed like it revolved around me.
Wow.
And I remember feeling this unseen force just holding me in. Wow. You know what I mean? Like I could almost feel it, just the pressure on my chest, like something was holding me in.
Wow.
And to this day, I cannot explain what that something was. But it just held me in this vehicle, and everything's going to hell. I remember everything going crazy, and I remember rolling.
It's like time stands still.
Yeah, exactly.
So slow.
Exactly. I remember, the only thing I really remember, though, is focusing for whatever reason on the clock. It was 2:34 p.m. And I remember focusing for whatever reason. My eyes were fixed on the digital readout of the clock.
Wow.
It was the weirdest event. I cannot explain it even to this day.
Now, is there a connection to your earlier experience?
I don't know if there's a connection, but what I'm saying is just weird crap happened. And then I hit about my early 30s and it all, boom, stopped. Unless I went looking for it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was like I hit this threshold in age to where I was no longer, I don't know if I wasn't aware anymore or whether I chose not to be aware. But, I mean, I used to see ghosts. I used to see a lot of ghosts when I was little. I remember my grandfather, who I didn't realize was dead yet, hanging around my father.
Wow.
And here I'm talking to Grandpa, and my dad's like, who the hell are you talking to? Well, Grandpa. No, you can't be talking to Grandpa. Yeah, that whole thing. But he was there, and I was talking with him. Just weird things like that. But much like your story, there's a certain point I hit in my life that, boom, it was done. It was like the party's over.
Right.
You're no longer able to look through that veil.
That's exactly it. And that was the one thing I kind of left out. Since you brought it up, it just fits dovetails so perfectly. What also changed for me, and I assume that this is I assume these are connected, and it's not coincidental. My entire life, again, up until kind of early 20s, and really I only had one other experience, and that was later 20s, so it wasn't even that much longer, on the Queen Mary, which, we could talk about another time. But other than that, I mean, nothing at all happened for decades. Kind of like you said, until I started going looking for it again, and that's all still fairly recent. That's definitely within the last 10 years, probably even less than that. But anyway, during this whole period, my whole life, up until about early 20s, about to when I was graduating and getting a job and then got married and all of that, I could lay down at night and I could I knew how to do this, and I can't imagine now how I did it. I was able to sort of open my mind, I suppose, in a way where I felt this absolute, undeniable, huge, like the spigot was turned on all the way, connection to another plane, the universe in general, to something much bigger and larger than the reality that we know. And I could always say to myself, well, no matter what's going on in my life, I know I have this connection, and I have this one-on-one connection to the entire universe, or to this other plane. Maybe it's a spiritual plane, to a greater reality. Probably that's the best way I can put it. And then all of a sudden, in my early 20s, when I stopped having these experiences, I also stopped being able to make that connection.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, same thing. Really, quite honestly, very similar stories here, because I made similar connections, but then you get to a certain point in your life whether you want to shut it off subconsciously, or there's a certain point, maybe everything connects in our brains and boom, we're done. You know what I mean? Where our brains grow to that point to where we're no longer receivers, a lot of us. I'm not sure why I quit, because I used to be very much more in tune with the paranormal and supernatural.
Well, you're saying you made it all the way into your early 30s.
I did.
That was 10 more years.
Yeah, I did. And just strange things. Like I remember I ran into a couple people that just disappeared, like your curmudgeon lady. Boom, gone. I remember this one funny guy, he just looked really strange as a truck stop in a place called Cloquet, Minnesota's the Oasis truck stop. It was 2 a.m. I was coming back from a Death Leopard concert back in the day. And we talked about that before, the one-armed man going, oh, yeah, look at the one-armed man. But anyhow, we went to that concert, and I stopped this truck stop with this other guy, and we're getting our coffee and getting some breakfast and the whole thing. And there's this just somebody that just doesn't seem like they fit with us at that moment. Have you ever met someone that just didn't feel like they fit in your space?
Oh, yeah.
What are you doing here?
That woman, for one.
Yeah, so this guy, right, he's probably at that time in his 40s. We were in our early 20s. He strikes up a conversation with us, and we start talking, back and forth, whatever. Hey, what were you kids up to? Well, I went to a concert. And he starts just talking about really odd things, like he starts talking about futuristic things at that moment. I didn't really care about. I didn't care that this was going to happen or that was going to happen. But then years later, these things he told us came to pass like a T. Perfectly. They came in line. He talked about smartphones with us. This guy did. He talked about smartphones because it was the dawning of the cell phone. Remember the old brick phone that's Nokia on it?
Oh, yeah.
Well, I had one of those.
Cool.
And I mean, I thought I was the coolest guy in town. Let me tell you, I had a Nokia brick phone. Well, this guy was talking about touchscreen phones. He was talking about all sorts of different futuristic things with us. And we're rolling our eyes like, yeah, whatever, go back and watch a Star Trek. It was so weird because everything that he talked about came to pass. Now, did we run into a time traveler? I mean, is that what we ran into? Somebody that was traveling in time? Or did we run into somebody from another dimension? Was there a rip in that fabric? In that truck stop with the bag coffee, was there a rip?
Or was it someone who simply has clairvoyance, who can see into the future?
Good. Yeah, but see, now this is the kicker now. The guy leaves, okay, like a minute before I did, because I stepped outside to get a breath of fresh air, if you know what I mean, lit up a cigarette back in those days. There, he was gone. He was gone, Eric.
Wow.
I mean, gone. Like I was literally almost behind this guy. So it was instant. Instant. I turned the corner, because there was a sharp 90-degree turn to leave. Okay, you'd come through the double doors, like most truck stops. You come out and you can go left or right. Left will take you over to the pumps. The gas pumps. Right will take you over to the parking lot area. Well, he took a right, and I was right behind him. I saw him take that right, and I came right behind him. He's gone. Very strange. It was a really weird moment.
Well, what's so interesting is that we've had some rather similar experiences.
Yeah, but what got me, though, is years later now. Let's fast forward to like 10 years ago when the smartphone first came out. Oh, my God.
Right, because you remember.
I remembered it going, that guy even called it an iPhone.
Oh, my.
No way. And I know no one's going to believe this, but if I were to call my buddy right now that was with me, he'd back me up. He'd be like, oh, yeah, I remember that night. But he was telling us all about just strange things coming to pass and things that hasn't happened quite yet either.
Ooh, I'd like to know what some of those things
are.
I
mean, and so far, everything that he predicted did come to pass.
Weird. Is it possible that it was just someone who was that smart, who was a futurist?
Maybe he worked for Apple, and it was some project they had far off in the distance they've been working on. I don't know.
Oh, it seems so long ago. Now, when was this?
This would have been in 1995.
Wow. All right. Well, that was a long time ago.
It was 95 because I remember that very clearly because it was the year after I graduated high school. And so we went to this concert and we're kind of living it up, being young college guys. And we ran into this, and he looked strange. His clothes didn't even fit our period. I mean, it was just weird, just weird. He just looked odd, just look, he didn't belong. And it was weird because none of the staff in this truck stop acted like they even saw him.
You hear there's a lot of weird things that happen at truck stops,
Really, seriously, I did not realize that the truck stop is the cosmic crossroads of the universe.
It's a portal.
It has to be because, since then I've read so many stories about the truck stops. I went in a truck stop and the weirdest thing I saw. But this guy, like I said, I was right behind him. There's just no way he could have got away from me. And I realize, I'm sorry about that, Eric. We're kind of cutting into America's Most Haunted headlines. But it was just such a strange moment in time. He wasn't mean. He didn't make me feel weird. I mean, he made me feel weird because he just started rambling for no good reason. Just start talking about nothing, about future crap. And, we're sitting there going, yeah, whatever. Uh-huh. Yep. Uh-huh. Yeah, I'm sure that's really going to happen. and of course, nobody.
And then it did.
And it did, but here's the thing, though. This is the weirdest part. Maybe even the weirdest part. Nobody in that truck stop, full of people, even acknowledged his presence.
Wow.
And this is a full truck stop. This isn't like it's this is a major interstate. This is I-94, right off I-94 interstate. So this is a major interstate.
So he might have appeared only to you and your friend?
That's what I started to think after a while. Were we visited? I mean, is this alien technology that we're enjoying now? Maybe that's why he knew?
Yeah, in a sense, when you open it up to the alien angle, it almost takes away some of the mystery, because then it just becomes, I mean, sure, it's nothing that we have proof of yet, but it takes away the supernatural. It becomes a quote unquote natural event.
Yeah.
If it's literally an alien who simply knows the future, who has been to the future,
sure,
or is, helping pave the way to new developments.
Well, it was just weird because the guy sat there for like a half hour rambling to us about futuristic events like the internet and email and this and that. And, it's like, yeah, whatever. We just thought it was nuts. We didn't know what home he escaped from, but he needed to get back there.
Wow.
And then, and he just said, well, you boys have a good night. I got to go. I got up. Decided to go up for a breath of fresh air. I'm right behind him. I could have touched his shoulder. That's how close I was to him. And he left. Took a right. I took a right, and he was gone. I should have ran right into him.
Wow. So you turned a corner. He turned the corner ahead of you.
Yeah, just ahead of me.
Followed along.
Yep.
And he was gone.
Just gone.
Daddy gone.
Just gone. It was strange. And I mean, during the period of time I'm talking about, the Great Lakes are just a hotbed of UFO activity. I'm not saying it's related, but during that period of time, like when we were talking about paranormal Great Lakes recently, and during the 90s, it was very much a hotbed of paranormal activity, specifically UFO activity. And this is in that area. This is near the Great Lakes.
So what is your overarching theory then about, in other words, what is your reality? How do you fit these experiences and then the fact that they kind of went away, at least for a time? How do you fit that into your reality?
I think that maybe when you're young, you're more accepting of what is. You don't have these preconceived notions yet of what can and cannot exist. And then, of course, we end up getting that filter as we get older. And then we have responsibilities like kids and jobs and this and that. And so that all clouds our perception to where you don't really stop and look that hard anymore because we're just too busy keeping up. When you're young, you have nothing but time because the future is ahead of you. And that could be why we were more open. And most of us, people have talked to me about this before. They say, well, I was way more open to this stuff when I was in my 20s. It's like when life got serious, everything went away.
Right. Well, remember, too, what's the classic line from the handbook to the hereafter from Beetlejuice?
Yes.
The living won't see the strange and unusual. And then Lydia, of course, says, but I am strange and unusual. And so she can see them when others were not.
Yeah. But like I said, much like your curmudgeon lady you saw on the side of the road disappeared. This guy disappeared just as quickly. And nothing felt right for me either. Looking back those days, just everything seemed just a little bit to the left. Just not quite what we're used to.
Well, from a scientific standpoint, it is not at all far-fetched. It fits in with a lot of theories, advanced cosmology, physics theories, that there are other universes. Ours is just one of almost an infinite number, if not an infinite number, of universes. Anything that can happen will happen. And all of these universes, because it's essentially infinite, can be extremely close to our own with only minor differences, minor variations, even unnoticeable variations. And if we happen to somehow connect with one of those universes that is similar to ours, we may not even know it.
That is true. I mean, people talk about losing things like they'll put a jack on the back of a chair. Next thing you know, it's gone. Where'd it go? No one's around to take it.
Well, there's a really famous story, yes, about actually from the book, from the America's Most Haunted book, that Lorraine Warren told. She once visited the Knickerbocker Hotel, which is not too far from here. It's just right across the border into Pennsylvania, not hour and a half maybe from where I live at most. And so they were having kind of an event for her. They were kind of honoring her and her career. And I think she was also turning maybe 80 or something at the time. And so she was visiting. Well, her purse literally, utterly disappeared. Her entire purse. And she looked around. She asked Peg, who owns the place. She asked others if they had seen it, people sitting around her. No one had seen it. No one had any idea where it was. So Peg said, aha, this is something that happens not infrequently here. And what you need to do is you need to ask the building to give it back to you.
Give me my purse. I can imagine how that went down.
So she was a little skeptical, shall we say. Lorraine was. And a little irritated that this has happened in the first place. But she finally said, okay, yeah, all right, building, please give me my purse back. Well, it reappeared.
That is a cool story. That is a very
So where did
cool
it go?
story. I don't know. No one knows.
Go?
I had the same thing happen to me with a bomber jacket I used to own. I used to love that thing, leather bomber jacket. When it was all the rage to own one of those. Put it on the back of a chair. I'm sitting in the chair, right? And no one's around. I get up to leave, grab my jacket. It's gone. Never to be found again.
Never?
Never. I've never found that jacket.
Wow.
Just
you
gone.
Ask
Boom.
the building to give it back to you?
I did. I'm like, hey, I don't know who took it. It's not funny anymore, is what I said. And it never came back to me. Never reappeared. But, man, that's all crazy. We could go. We got to do a show on time slips one of these days. We're going to dig up somebody, so to speak, that can maybe give us some theories on string theory and quantum physics and things like that. That, is perception truly reality? What we were perceiving then, was that truly reality?
I don't know, but it is bewildering, and it opens. I'm going to have to ponder all this. Now I'm going to have all kinds of weird thoughts, and I will be thinking about our conversation very intently for some time. I got to try to figure all this stuff out.
It's a pretty deep thinking subject right there. We got to run a break. We come back. We're We're going to have Dave Cole with us, and he is from NextVR, and they got a cool new paranormal show out there that's hitting the VR market, and that is the Paranormal Experience. Very, very cool. You're going to want to stick around for that. It's going to be fun to talk to him, pick his brain about new technology on the way and how this is all working. So be right back right after this. After Hours AM will be right back after these messages.
America's Most Haunted, The Secrets of Famous Paranormal Places is now an epic book from Berkeley Penguin. History, legends, investigations, interviews, and profiles of America's 10 most haunted hotspots by Eric Olsen and haunted housewife Teresa Argy. Be sure to join us on Twitter and Facebook at AM Haunted, Pinterest at America's Most Haunted, and our website, americas-most-haunted.com. And here every week on America's Most Haunted Radio with all the top names in the paranormal field.
This is Jen McGowan, founder of Wayward Souls Promotions, a company dedicated to helping individuals, teams, radio shows, and others that are seeking exposure for their individual events, conventions, and shows. We offer a wide variety of advertising, such as web-based article, social media posts, podcast advertisement, and so on. Contact us at paranormalpromotion@gmail.com, visit us on Facebook at Wayward Souls Promotions, and visit our website at www.waywardsoulspromotions.com.
Welcome back to After Hours AM. Welcome back to After Hours AM, everybody. I'm your host, Joel Sturgis, right along with me,
Eric Olsen.
Hey, Eric, man, we got a great guest on tap, and quite honestly, it's a fresh new view on maybe some paranormal media as well. So definitely interested to hear what this individual has to say. Who are we talking to today? I guess I should be asking you that, man. Who are we talking to?
Yeah, it's really exciting. We talk all the time, Joel, about how there's not that much going on that's new. So many of these paranormal investigation programs have a real familiar, similar approach. So it's very exciting to have something new coming down the pike. In fact, just released, I believe, 2 days ago. Paranormal Evidence is a virtual reality investigation exploring the unexplained phenomena reported at notoriously haunted locations. The original program, developed by NextVR, pulls fans into the investigation as events unfold around them. A team of investigators led by Jack Kasowitz, who has years of investigative journalism and linguistics, interesting experience, selected Pennhurst Asylum for the premiere of Paranormal Evidence, with one goal: to capture evidence of what many have claimed is lurking in the dark. Known as one of the most haunted locations in North America, Pennhurst opened in 1908 to care for children with severe mental and physical disabilities. In the decades to follow, the isolated facility also housed society's outcasts and criminals. After nearly a century of controversy and accusations of abuse and neglect, the institution was finally closed. Unexplained occurrences have been reported for years, my friends, including strange voices, slamming doors, shadowy figures, and visitors grabbed by unseen hands.
Not unseen hands.
Unseen hands. Love those unseen hands. All right, about NextVR. We got to know about NextVR. NextVR is the world's leading virtual reality platform for delivering live sports and music in virtual reality to fans globally. Launched in 2009, the company has multiple patented technologies that deliver an unparalleled virtual reality experience, providing fans extraordinary access and profound immersion with invisible hands. NextVR has world-class partnerships with leaders in sports and entertainment, including NFL, NBA, Fox Sports, Live Nation, and the International Champions Cup. NextVR was founded by industry leaders with decades of experience in 3D stereoscopic imaging, compression technology, and VR broadcasting. Holy cats! We are privileged to welcome to the program the CEO of NextVR, Dave Cole. Welcome to the program, Dave.
Hey, thank you very much. It's really great to be on the show with you guys.
Hey, thanks a ton, Dave, like Eric said, for coming on. And, we talk a lot about paranormal programming, like Eric had mentioned. Eric has said we've had pretty much everyone, the who is who of the paranormal on the show, but we've never seen a concept like you guys have worked on. Because generally speaking, you watch a paranormal show, lights out, the normal fare. You know what I'm talking about. This offers, looking at, of course, what you guys are offering, it's a truly immersive experience where you're really put into the location. Now, who had the idea to go into the paranormal realm with virtual reality?
So actually, I did, and it's somewhat unusual for me to have a heavy-hand influence on our programming, but the sort of the paranormal genre ghost shows seems so absolutely perfect for virtual reality that it sort of, once the light bulb went off to do it kind of got a life of its own, and it just was a no-brainer for us. As we started to test the sort of lights off experience and kind of going through really creepy locations in VR, we were sold immediately. And from the very first test, we knew that we had something that was really right for the VR medium and sort of watching alone in the dark. And the other sort of recipe for this to kind of come to our programming was that it just really matches the current VR demographic perfectly. There's a lot of early adopters in the VR space that are into gaming, and the biggest genre of gaming is horror. And so if you kind of look at where the industry is right now, one of the big successes in terms of AAA gaming titles in virtual reality is Resident Evil.
I was going to say, I played that. Yeah.
It's terrifying in VR. I mean, it's makes grown men scream. Really fun to play, but the creep factor is amplified by 1,000. And so we knew that we had something with this that would be that would appeal to those early adopters that are really into that type of game.
Sure. In fact, Capcom, they sent me a copy of Resident Evil and a loaner for the VR headset what you have to wear and stuff. And I played the game in VR, and like you'd said, it is absolutely terrifying. It had me, and I played all the Resident Evil games. I'm like, holy crap, what is that thing? And it really gave you that 360 experience.
Did you get through the whole game without turning the headset off?
I did. I made it all the way through. I cringed and cried once in a while, but I did make it through. And to take this technology now and bring it to the paranormal realm, now, VR is a really immersive experience. And in fact, I was playing the Resident Evil game, and I felt almost sick to my stomach at times because of the motion. That's how you're put into the atmosphere. It's very first-person viewing.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. So we joke that this is a departure for us from our regular programming, which is around sports and entertainment, as you mentioned, and earlier. We're the official live VR broadcaster for the NBA. We carry a regular season of programming every week live in virtual reality around NBA. We've worked with the NFL. We've got really a lot in terms of live sports, and then in music with Live Nation. So this is very different programming, and so we say that we're the company that is known for taking you to places you really want to be, is now taking you places you really don't want to be. But it has exactly the same kind of appeal that you're really literally transported. And I think that I'm actually a fan of ghost shows, and I watch them in the dark on the biggest screen I possibly can, because I really want to feel that I want to feel like I'm there. And there's no technology in the world that's better at making you feel like you're there than virtual reality. So it is really a good fit.
Hey, Dave, just for people who are perhaps not as caught up with technology, and like you say, we're still kind of in the early adopter phase of things, could you maybe just give a primer on what is virtual reality? How does this work? And then I realize it's hard to do with words, since it's really all about the experience of jumping into this environment via the technology. But if you could just maybe describe what we're talking about on the most basic level, and then maybe apply it as to the show itself, just to give us a little bit of background and a platform to work from, that then we'll all be on the same page.
Yeah, absolutely. So virtual reality products that are available to consumers right now are tend to be in sort of three categories. One is what they call the mobile phone snap-in, and this is where you take your phone, your Android phone, and snap it in a headset, put it on your head. The second is, as you mentioned, you've got the loaner from Capcom with the PlayStation VR. It's the console-based devices. So PlayStation right now has a peripheral called PlayStation VR. So you plug that in your PlayStation VR, put it on your head, and you're in virtual reality. And then the third sort of category is it's sort of at the high end, and this is generally high-end gamers, and that's PC-based products. So an Oculus Rift or an HTC Vive, you buy these higher-end headsets and plug them into really high-end computers. All of them, across all of those categories, deliver an incredibly immersive experience that is basically this. You put these things on your head, and your visual field is completely replaced with something that's synthetically generated, computer generated. And as you look around, it changes as if your eyes were seeing the world changing in front of you. So the illusion is that your reality is thoroughly replaced by something that's computer generated. So they track your head movement very precisely, and then feed your brain with what it expects to see about the world changing around you. And so the combined effect of this is an incredibly convincing illusion that you're somewhere else. You're in another world.
Yeah, I'm also seeing that movies are starting to adopt this technology. That some movies, I've seen some futuristic write-ups about it, that Hollywood is starting to take a hard look at it, no pun intended, at the VR, and it looks to be something that will keep moving forward in entertainment.
Yeah, so if you look at the market right now, a big driver is, of course, gaming, right? Yeah. You play games in this environment, and you're fully immersed in them, and there's a ton of innovation going into that space. The Resident Evil success, somewhere in the neighborhood of 11 to 12% of the entire audience playing Resident Evil 7, which is arguably one of the most valuable game franchises in the world, of 11% of the audience is playing in VR, which is a huge number. And so this has sort of moved the entire video game industry to kind of those that were on the fence to wake up and take notice that this is going to be this potentially is a sea change coming for gaming. And then there's content we produce, which isn't necessarily synthetic. It's not computer generated, and it's not a game. But it does uses the technology to transmit in reality, captured from another environment. From an NBA game or from a live concert. So that's more video-oriented content. And then to your point about the sort of theatrical content. Hollywood has definitely taken notice. What was kind of VR was kind of being used to promote games. So little trailers would be released to promote new movies. Trailers would be released that were promotional. They would be shown at Comic-Con to kind of promote the next Spider-Man or whatever. And that has definitely shifted. So you see that a lot of theatrical productions are producing VR companion pieces now. So if you're really a fan of Ready Player One, you're absolutely going to want to see it, both at the movies and to see the VR companion piece to get the most out of it. And that's coming across the board. So you're seeing, major content producers, directors such as Steven Spielberg really embrace the medium now. And so, there's a lot of smoke coming out of smokestacks in Hollywood to do really innovative stuff in VR. And that of course, is going to drive the market.
Well, Hollywood has to keep up. You know what I mean? And this is it's 2017, and they have a very sophisticated audience that uses really important technology, if I could get over my own tongue for a second. And they have to keep up with the changes in technology, otherwise they're going to find themselves going the way of going on the wayside. That being said, watching your trailer for this program that is taking place in the paranormal, there's a lot of paranormal purists out there that, it's all about the evidence, it's all about this, it's all about that. I've noticed that with the VR, it might actually be able to showcase the evidence even more accurately.
I'm glad you mentioned that. We think it absolutely can. One thing is, you don't necessarily have to look where the director wants you to look. You can look anywhere in the environment. So if you notice something, you absolutely can stay focused on it. If you're watching it, VOD, you're watching it on demand, you can rewind and look at it again, and follow phenomena in the space. So that's something we absolutely intend to capitalize on. And the overall resolution of these cameras is higher than so we've custom built virtual reality camera systems that work in full spectrum lighting, and we light with infrared light at an incredibly high resolution. So we're capturing many more times resolution than is typically done for an HD television show. And so there absolutely is the ability just visually to see more than you ordinarily would see. Additionally, our cameras use a sound recording technology called binaural sound. And what that means is you can hear in 3 dimensions as well. So if something attracts your attention, you hear a noise, you'll know spatially where it's coming from. And so this is completely different than the television experience where you've got sound coming out of 2 speakers. The sound that happens if a phenomena occurs and it's acoustic, you know actually precisely where it's happening in the space. So we think just in terms of sort of capturing evidence that it definitely is going to be certainly better than television cameras to represent the experience. And then the sort of the notion of the purists and the sort of the honesty of the show is something I really want to speak to. Because you won't actually get this from our first show. Yeah. You'll get some of this, but a storyline that will continue to develop throughout the episodes is the sort of first of all the pedigree of the science that's going on. Jack Kasowitz, our host, his background is actually in interspecies communication, mostly dolphin and orangutan vocalizations. So the reason he initially got involved with this show is because he wanted to apply the technology that's used for pattern detection in dolphin and orangutan vocalizations to EVPs. So this is really deep stuff, and we don't knock you over the head with the science. We'd like to. We ultimately will knock you over the head with the science. But what's actually happening there is really phenomenal spectral analysis of all the phenomena that are going on. And Jack's instrumentation is, we'll be talking more and more about it, but he's got, he is putting down this phenomenal network of array of acoustic sensors to capture and measure, and then come back and kind of report out the validity of some of the acoustic phenomenon. And we'll be giving you more and more of that information as the story progresses. Again, kind of not knocking you over the head with it. And then I will just a little bit about our executive producer, Michael Wachalunas, an incredible purist. He, if there's something that occurs in the episode that's a recreation, you'll absolutely know it's a recreation. But there's absolutely nothing faked here. The cameras catch what they catch. Okay. It's fundamentally a fishing expedition, and we're not even chumming the water. So
yeah, well, I was gonna say, because especially the paranormal community, they're all about the integrity of the evidence, the integrity of the investigators, and the integrity of the show. And if it was something that wasn't above board, and I'm glad you approached that, because if it wasn't something above board, they're not the kind of folks they'll tune in for very long. They'll be like, okay, that's enough. I'm out of here. And so that's good to hear that that all that is being taken place. One thing that hit me in the head there for a second, speaking of being hit over the head, is VR. I mean, really, quite honestly, look at the technology. You would think that in the medical fields, it would be invaluable, having something like that where you can look 360 at really someone's anatomy if you're a doctor.
So yeah, and there's no question about it. There are a bunch of enterprise uses of virtual reality that are kind of this is just a little history. This is VR's kind of second coming. There was a virtual reality revolution in the 90s as well. At that time, it was all promise, and unfortunately, the technology, at least the consumer technology, was really it fell short of consumer expectations. So there was a lot of VR hype in the 90s. There were movies like Lawnmower Man, right, that made you expect that you'd sort of plug in and completely lose yourself in synthetic worlds.
Well, back in the day, I actually owned the Nintendo VR Boy, they call it at the time, which was just that red display. Oh, my Lord. Talk about a migraine headache after using that for about 10 minutes. So I'm pleased to see that the technology is really starting to come into its own and utilizing really some fantastic things. That, and now seeing it in a paranormal setting is going to be really cool, because, you might not be able to go to Pennhurst, but damn it, man, you're there. I mean, you can see Pennhurst. It's not wherever the cameraman takes you. It's where you want to go. And that is absolutely cool, because I've never had the opportunity to get in Pennhurst. I always have. Now, were you there for any of the filming, Dave?
Unfortunately not. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to make it. I had a conflict, and it drove me absolutely up the wall. I'll tell you, maybe you shouldn't spill this, but I had a remote connection, so I could see the security, the control room and security connection, and I was glued to the screen. But I actually had a VR feed, a private VR feed live for a little bit, but I didn't have, I couldn't actually physically be there.
No, Dave, come on, share this. We have to clear the air. Did you want to be there, or was the location a little too creepy for your taste?
Yeah. No. I desperately wanted to be there. In the prototyping phase, I was able to spend a lot of time creeping around in the dark and scary places, and it's a blast. So no, I would have. It drove me crazy not to be there, and I won't miss. I'll miss as few productions as I possibly can. I think it's great stuff. So no, I absolutely would. It is taxing. This people sort of, maybe your audience will like to hear a little bit about sort of what happens in the production phase. But this gives you an appreciation of what everybody in the industry kind of goes through. But keeping crews up all night for multiple nights, these days can be 18, 20-hour days, multiple days, and that's for the talent as well, and they have to sort of be somewhat coherent because they're in front of the camera. So these shows are a lot of work.
Yeah, it sure is grueling. Wow. That is a lot of work.
And for the production crew, particularly when you have a lot of scientific instrumentation laid around, they're they're sort of crawling around in the dark. They have no light at all. They can't see anything. There are cables everywhere, and there are ghosts messing with them. And and they've done it 3 nights in a row, so or 2 nights in a row. So the productions are definitely grueling in terms of the way they tend to get executed, but just a blast. And our team is absolutely in love with this production format. The people who are working on this show are just over the moon with how much they're enjoying doing it. So I'll definitely be at the next one.
Well, Dave, you just earned a lot of respect from me, because a lot of CEOs, we've asked, because we've had other media people on, and when I've asked, hey, have you been to the location? No, that's really not for me. I send them. Not you, man. You're right there, boots in the ground, checking out these creepy locations. That's admirable.
If it's not fun, I mean, the VR, our industry is about live sports and entertainment and products like Paranormal Experience. If you're not having fun doing that, you're kind of probably in the wrong business. So
True. Yeah, I totally get where you're coming from. Kind of like radio. If you don't love radio, you got to get out, because it's going to shine through.
Right.
When you're doing the shows. Now, that technology, though, is something else. I've been watching the trailers over and over again, the information sent in the email. Now, the VR unit, when people, if they want to tune in, do they have to buy a separate headset, or can they use their Android phone solely, or is it a little bit of both? What's the technology to buy like?
Yeah, so right now we support the hardware that is roughly 80% of the 80 to 85% of the market, which is the Samsung Gear VR, the first product that was in the market, and Google Daydream. So in the case of Samsung, if you have a flagship Samsung phone from the Galaxy 6 on up, there are headsets available, and in many cases, Samsung gave users of those phones, the purchasers of those phones, the headsets for free to promote the phone. So Samsung's installed base is somewhere north of 6 million units, and a lot of those users got their headsets for free. In the case of Google Daydream, there are a number of Android phones that support this Daydream headset. The Google Pixel is sort of the premier one, but there are a number of phones in the market that support the Daydream headset.
Sure.
And those are relatively inexpensive. You have one of those, then I believe headsets tend to cost around $40, $50 to add that to your phone, and you're good to go. That is a very high quality VR experience. Mm-hmm. That is really as good as it gets, and you can spend half an hour watching our show, and you'll be completely comfortable and doing everything that you'd want to do in VR. So those are pretty much top of the line VR products that you can get, really, if you have one of the phones that support it, really just for the cost of the headset.
Yeah. Well, now, Dave, I got to ask, though, really quick, because I know we have a lot of iPhone users. Is iPhone on board yet? Is Apple on board yet with this new VR revolution?
The answer is not yet. The Apple approach is to be extremely high quality with everything they do. In terms of the use of iPhone, and they'll come to market. Apple will sort of endorse VR and come to market when they feel like they've got the best, the best product out there. Sure. In our opinion, this is purely just market opinion.
Sure.
And so iPhone users will have to wait a little bit, but it's absolutely not the only way to get VR. There's also PlayStation VR. If you happen to have a PlayStation 4, there are 35 million users of PlayStation 4 in the market. For, I believe right now the bundle is $299. You can add you can add on PlayStation VR, and it comes with a series of really nice games as well. And then you're off and running with PlayStation. And then there's a number of other products coming to market, both in the phone space and in the console space. There by the end of this year, there'll be products that are basically all-in-one wireless devices. They're like phones without a phone. So you don't have to buy a phone to use it. They're just dedicated virtual reality headsets that have, in most cases, Android built into them, so you can get apps for them. It's a lot like using a phone, but without the phone.
Very cool.
And those are going to be relatively low cost.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, well, I don't think that Xbox One, as of this program, offers one, unless I'm mistaken. I'm not aware of anything because I have both consoles, and I'm not sure that Xbox One is offering anything in the VR quite yet. If I'm not mistaken, Dave.
So that's correct. In the console space, Sony is the Sony PlayStation VR is the only player so far. However, Microsoft has announced that they have built have designed Project Spectre, which is the new Xbox, for virtual reality. They haven't announced plans specifically for releasing a headset or a headset specification, but they've announced that that's part of the use case for the new Xbox. So the new Xbox will be joining PlayStation at some point in the relatively near future, we think, as an option for virtual reality as well. So no matter what console you buy, you'll have a VR option.
Very cool. Eric, man, I cannot wait. This could be a whole lot of fun.
Yeah, it's amazing. I'm listening to all these descriptions and to the unfolding. I am not as much of a gamer, so I am definitely behind. I think of it more probably from the content, from the audio-visual standpoint, and I'm finding the thoughts that I'm having are, do you foresee, Dave, I mean, it sounds to me like this is very possible, that we will actually be able to move forward in terms of the technical aspects of paranormal investigation. It sounds like we're reaching a new level potentially of resolution, both on the audio and visual side. Do you think we're going to come up with something brand new that's never been found before? Is that possible? Because I know you're also on the tech end. Sounds like you've been in this space for decades.
So I can't announce I can't announce a core technology right at the moment, but let me give you a sense of something that's going on, and it ties into the use of devices like the Microsoft Kinect that have been used on a number of paranormal shows to scan an environment in 3D and try to find map phenomena that are occurring. And a number of shows have used Kinect very effectively to kind of as a motion detector, a three-dimensional motion detector. Our technology works by, let me get it kind of into the weeds here a little bit. I'll try not to get too deep. But our technology works by allowing the cameras to scan the environment in 3D, and then the cameras themselves build a map of the environment. So in the case of Pennhurst, there's literally a three-dimensional map that's constructed in real time of what the cameras see. And that goes all the way down to the end user. So when you're watching our content, you are actually inside a virtual world that's a depth reconstruction. Think of it like a wireframe, like chicken wire. Reconstruction of the environment that the camera is in. And then we projection map the high-resolution 3D video to the walls of that chicken wire. The effect is fundamentally that we're transmitting a video game, except instead of being computer-generated, we are using real, live, in some cases captured footage in very high resolution to map to the walls. The end effect of that is that it gives you an incredibly strong sense of presence, because you actually are inside a virtual world that's exactly the right size as the environment where the camera is. This is kind of a disembodied experience where we've taken your head and put it right where it's kind of a grisly thought, but put it right where the camera is, and it gives you a very strong sense of presence. Well, the technology that enables that is 3D mapping the world.
Okay.
And so if there were a way to extend the range of that 3D mapping technology so that it were able to pick up either optical phenomena that are occurring, shadows, that type of thing, or any other disturbance, such as maybe ultrasonic disturbances that have 3D, that have shape to them, right? That are occurring and visualize that, we could sort of give you a superpower, in the dark, to be able to look around and see. Imagine it's sort of like, turning on X-ray vision a little bit.
Kind of like hyper IR, right, Dave? Would that be
exactly.
Right. Good analogy. All right. That makes sense to me.
Magic glasses on, and you can see. Maybe we can extend the spectrum that you could see. Maybe you, as a viewer, could control this, right?
Yeah.
So maybe you could sort of pull out, say, okay, I want to switch on, my tactical mode, and all of a sudden you've got an infrared laser array overlay to what you're looking at, and you can see go back and look at phenomena. So that kind of capability is absolutely sort of inherent in the way that we produce content. Again, I'm not sort of announcing anything. It's just a capability, and because it's there and it seems pretty darn cool, I think it's likely to be an area we'll pursue.
Very, very cool. Dave, we got to run to break. When we come back, we're going to talk more about NextVR. We're going to talk more about the show. We're going to talk more about the paranormal with Dave. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back right after this. After Hours AM will be right back after these messages.
America's Most Haunted, The Secrets of Famous Paranormal Places is now an epic book from Berkeley Penguin. History, legends, investigations, interviews, and profiles of America's 10 most haunted hotspots by Eric Olsen and haunted housewife Teresa Archie. Be sure to join us on Twitter and Facebook at AM Haunted, Pinterest at America's Most Haunted, and our website, americas-most-haunted.com. And here every week on America's Most Haunted Radio with all the top names in the paranormal field.
This is Jen McGowan, founder of Wayward Souls Promotions, a company dedicated to helping individuals, teams, radio shows, and others that are seeking exposure for their individual events, conventions, and shows. We offer a wide variety of advertising, such as web-based article, social media posts, podcast advertisement, and so on. Contact us at paranormalpromotion@gmail.com, visit us on Facebook at Wayward Souls Promotions, and visit our website at www.waywardsoulspromotions.com.
Welcome back to After Hours AM. Welcome back to After Hours AM, everybody. I'm your host, Joel Sturgis, right along with me,
Eric Olsen.
Hey, Eric, man, this VR technology that Dave Cole is talking to us about with NextVR is the company, and it is blowing my mind. See, I'm a gamer, and so I've dealt with this stuff, and Eric, you got to give it a try. Go down, get yourself. If you have an Android phone, I'm not sure if you're. I think you don't even. Wait a minute. You don't even have a smartphone. Well, anyhow, eventually you can get yourself one of those headsets, and man, sky's the limit of that thing. It's a very, very cool thing. But now let's shift gears a little bit into the paranormal. Dave, have you ever had an experience? I mean, where do you come from? I mean, why do you believe in the paranormal?
So that's a very good question, and I'm going to show through that a little bit, but hopefully give you some sincerity as well. Everybody has a ghost story, and everybody who works in this field really has a bunch of them, and I think my observation is that they're very genuine people, and the phenomena that they're observing are anomalous in some way. They're definitely genuine, and that's sort of the pat answer. The real answer is, I've in the process of some of the tests that we've shot and the process we went through to prototype. I definitely had some experiences that I can't explain. I saw members of the crew have experiences that they can't explain, and not just once. Actually, kind of every time out. I mean, really, every time out.
My Lord, that is impressive because, every time out, and then, of course, Pennhurst, though, has been known to be so active for years.
Yes, I think the drill, to be honest with you, is to fish where the fish are. The places where there's sort of notorious activity, where the frequency of activity, the frequency of reports is really high. I mean, it's kind of a no-brainer. If you were scouting, forget the paranormal. If you were scouting a location for, any kind of occurrence, you're doing natural history, and you're looking for a pride of lions. You go where they were last spotted and are likely to be. You're not guaranteed to get them, but your odds are better. And that sort of simple recipe seems to be applicable here. That if you kind of go to the most notoriously haunted or places where there's just a lot of reports of phenomena that
Dave, you got to tell us your own personal experiences. I mean, what happened to you?
I thought this was coming. All right, I'm going to dish. This is actually happened. Something we were testing at a location. Had sort of checks all the boxes for being notoriously spooky. And the docent, it was a museum, the docent of the facility told us that, was kind of recounting what she'd experienced and what she had seen from various ghost hunters that had kind of come in and used the facility. And she reported that the attic was notoriously haunted. I mean, it had really a bad reputation. In fact, there had been a ghost hunting crew that had just been in there. It was full of just really burly police officers that were doing it for fun, and it scared them. So anyway, this intrigued my son, who happened to be with us when we were doing this test. And so he said, "I'm going to the attic." And we were kind of working. This is a 4-story building. We were working downstairs, and we said, "Go ahead, go on up."
Yeah.
And so he ran up there, and about 40 minutes later, he came down sheet white, and we all kind of turned to him and said, "What happened?" And he goes, "Well, I think something happened." And he said he had kind of long hair, and he said he got up in the attic, shut the attic door, and he felt something sort of flip the back of his hair up, long hair, kind of. He felt kind of a finger go up the back of his neck and flip his hair. And so he patted it down and thought maybe it was a spider or something. It's dark in an attic, so he moved around, and then it happened again. And he sort of moved, repositioned, started to get uncomfortable, put his back up against the wall, and then he felt a full hand, all fingers, go up the back of his neck and flip his hair up. And that's when he came down.
Oh, boy.
So that's sort of it. In the next couple, sometime in a couple weeks after that, we were in the same facility shooting pickup shots. We didn't have talent. We were just shooting. We had cameras, and we were going around getting close-ups on various objects, kind of testing the range of the camera and a number of things. It allowed us in while other ghost hunters were in the facility. So there were and we agreed not to disturb them, and we were just kind of doing our own thing and staying out of the way. Well, one of the ghost hunting groups that was there was actually conducting a seance in the next room. And I'll be totally honest, we were in the room we were in kind of making fun of them. I mean, not audibly, but, smirking a little bit.
I hear you. I hear you. I've been there. Okay. I've been in that kind of situation.
So, but the woman who was leading in the process of what she was doing in leading the seance said, "Albert, are you in the attic tussling people's hair?" and it was sort of like one of those scenes from a cartoon. We all did it. I was like, what'd she just say?
Yeah.
And so when they were done, when they were wrapped up, we kind of grabbed them and said, did we ever hear, what, could you tell us? And she said, yeah, it's well known. This spirit we call Albert is notorious for playing with women's hair, long hair, when they go up there. And so anyway, that's one. That's one, and we all kind of, whoa, right?
Yeah, that'd make me go, whoa, especially since your son had that personal experience in the attic, and then you hear the seance going on. They're talking about flipping hair. That would be enough to make me go, this is a little on the creepy side.
And we've had the lights thing, we've had the battery thing, we've had the footsteps thing, we've had it all. I mean, and then we haven't been doing this very long, and we've had it all. So, the data tend to collect, right?
Yeah.
Hey, Dave, do you think that there's anything about the equipment that you are using, or some sort of different approach or technique brought about by the use of the equipment that is lending itself to the investigation? In other words, do you think you're getting more activity or picking up more activity than you normally would with other equipment or under different circumstances?
The answer is I don't think so. We're not, from a sort of what we're emitting in the sort of RF and infrared and various spectrums, and just the amount of kind of power we're hauling around. It's not that different than a regular television broadcast. Mm-hmm. It's a different equipment, but the mapping system, the 3D mapping system is just using, it's an optical system, so it's just using the available infrared light. We're not kind of pumping the room with stuff. We have talked to investigators who have taken the approach of trying to kind of charge up the environment, either using Tesla coils. I mean, you've probably seen the various approaches to use Van de Graaff generators or Tesla coils or negative ion generators or that kind of thing. But that kind of thing with the presumption of making a more energy somehow available. I don't know that there's any real data to suggest that it works. Some of it's kind of cool. We'd certainly be open to trying it, but we're not doing anything like that, and our equipment's not really emitting anything exotic that might help out. One thing I will say is, just through the process of kind of getting this show launched, we've had some great conversations with sort of, I call them the ghost geeks, but the guys that are out building tools, building toys.
Sure.
The beatboxes and the geophones, and man, that stuff's great. That stuff is I love the toys, and I think a lot of our audience is going to like the toys too. The various detectors and infrared cameras and the geophones and that type of stuff. And it really is cool. The Mel meters. It's really cool, the kind of innovation that happens in this space, that are sort of geeky guys down in the basement with their soldering irons building the next cool thing to kind of crack the code on all of this. And that community is really neat. I mean, I there's a story there. There's probably a documentary sort of on the ghost geeks. I'm not saying we're going to do it, but I think it's interesting. At least it's interesting to me that community of guys that are out there, trying stuff, building it, and then taking it out into the field every weekend to try to crack the code. Really cool stuff.
Yeah, Dave, it's one of these things that necessity is the mother of invention. When it comes to paranormal investigation, because nothing was really designed or made specifically for paranormal investigation, even though we try to press into service. And yeah, you got guys out there that are super knowledgeable. In fact, we had the crew from Shepherdstown on the show, the TV show, and Elizabeth was she is actually electrical engineer, and she builds this stuff for their TV show. And to hear her talk about the nuts and bolts and how it works, my eyes glaze over. But I'll tell you what, I enjoy hearing it all the same, even though I don't quite understand everything. But that being said, we haven't even covered where we can catch this show. Where is it being broadcast at?
Yeah, so it's at nextvr.com. If you go to nextvr.com, you'll get a link to the actual virtual reality site where it's distributed, and you also can see some of the teaser content outside of virtual reality as well. So you can see it, and you can use the web to kind of look around in the content, and then that'll sort of take you through what you need to see it in VR. But it all kind of starts at nextvr.com.
Now, is it a free to watch or is it a pay to watch program?
It is. No, it's absolutely free. You just
very
need a VR
cool.
set. Just add VR and you're ready to go.
How many episodes are you planning? I know you said this is the first one.
Yeah.
And where are you going to go?
We haven't announced it yet, but our plan is to go to the most dreadful. That's sort of what I said earlier about fish where the fishing are. I mean, fish where the fish are is sort of our plan to go to the sort of the most dreadful places we possibly can dig up. It is interesting when you start to try to book and this is a little insight into how the magic is, but it's interesting how busy these places are.
Yeah.
Right. And how, their scheduling issues, when it comes to some of the worst places, they're phenomenally popular. If they're not doing a ghost show, then they've got, tens and 20s of ghost enthusiast clubs that are on a waiting list to get in. So it's kind of incredible. But also I think that's cool too. It shows how vibrant this community of enthusiasts is.
Well, Dave,
probably
not to toot our own horn here, but me and Eric, we have the inside track at all those locations, and we know all the owners.
All right.
So, I'm just saying, we may be, right, Eric? We may be able to help them out in that department.
Yeah, some of us here, who shall remain nameless, are the co-authors of America's Most Haunted, which delved deeply into the 10 most haunted public or semi-public locations in the nation.
Perfect.
That, and I'm actually going to the Palmer House next weekend, which is the most haunted hotel in America, by the way. I'll let you know how it is.
Fantastic. Yeah, we would love we absolutely would love a hookup, but the technology really isn't restrictive at all. We can go. We can go to locations. We could go to battlefields. It works outdoors. We can go to the Bell Witch Caves. It'll work underground. We can obviously do these sort of big sprawling locations like Pennhurst.
I got one word for you, my friend. I don't mean to cut you off, but Bigfoot.
No.
Think about it. Bigfoot. Just saying. Just put that little nugget in there. Bigfoot.
I will tell you that we do envision other applications for the cameras that shoot in the dark in virtual reality, and natural history is one of them. We weren't particularly thinking Bigfoot, but definitely, animal predation that happens at night. To be able to see that in VR,
Sure.
What goes on in the dark is really freaking fascinating in virtual reality, and it doesn't all have to be paranormal. Absolutely, natural history stuff, and as you say, even some of that investigative, Bigfoot and cryptoid stuff would be interesting too.
Yeah, it would, especially being in the forest at night. Ooh, that was creepy being there and live. I mean, I couldn't imagine VR, but very, very cool stuff.
Now, is this technology coming to television? Is this something we're going to see, or some version of what is now television? It's hard to determine exactly what is TV these days, since you have so many different technologies and the new streaming technology and the Netflix of the world and Hulu and all that. What's the difference between that and traditional TV? I mean, I'm not sure in terms of conceptually, but is this something that may be coming, I'm talking about just VR in general, to television as it's now experienced? I guess the other part of that question is, what's the difference between what you do, what NextVR is, and what 3D films are?
Yeah, that's a great question. And if 3D television were still we're still a viable consumer product, and it's not, unfortunately. But if 3D TVs had been a success, then 3D TV, I think, would be a great place for this kind of programming. I really do. I think it would be a nice extension to television for certainly for paranormal. But that didn't happen. We are a pure play. We want our users in a headset to watch our content. Unless it's just promotional or to give you some sense of what the experience is like outside of VR, we're really about delivering the value in VR, where we totally have you immersed. And so for us, it's really, we're sort of betting on the growth and success of the medium of VR, and we've hitched our wagon in terms of the original programming that we're doing to that. And actually all of our programming, all of the live sports and entertainment as well. So that we're kind of all about we're all about having our audience fully immersed.
Yeah. Well, I don't know with the absence of a headset, I'm just not sure technically how that would ever be able to lend itself to just television where you sit down on the couch and turn it on and there you are. That's a whole thing that kind of reminds me of the Star Trek holodeck. But maybe someday.
There have been attempts.
Yeah.
So there have been attempts to do what's called 360 or panoramic viewing on TV, where you kind of use the remote to pan around what's on the screen. You're watching in 2D, but you can actually kind of look around. And so there've been experiments with that. We don't do that. There's probably some value to that kind of programming, but it's not something that we want the full and unfettered attention of our viewers' nervous system.
Oh my God! And it delivers that, just playing like the Resident Evil game. And then I plan to. I actually do have the Google headset for my phone. I do plan to watch these episodes using that.
Excellent.
And it's going to be something else. I just got to make sure I have an empty stomach.
Well, so I'll tell you one test we'd really like to do, and it's probably a user-focused study that we actually will do. But we would like to show a scene, show one of the scenes that we've captured in VR and on a flat screen, on a television screen to a study audience, and measure the reaction of the hair standing up in the back of their head, measure sort of the goose flesh reaction, and look at how much more intense it is in VR. It really, anecdotally, this will be kind of there's no contest.
Yeah.
VR, just because it's so engaging, you're so sort of given over to the medium, just to allow it to kind of to experience it. Then when that scare, just the sort of intensity of scare, that raw kind of guttural experience is way more intense than where you sort of than other mediums. You don't have to, and the reason is because you don't have to work to suspend disbelief.
Yeah.
You're watching television, and your brain, that you have to interpret it. You're not there, right? You're not only are you not there, but you're not in any risk. You're watching something that's happened already, and it's on a flat screen, and it's 8 feet away from you.
Yeah.
But so in order to kind of get into the story, you've got to go through this sort of suspension of disbelief, and great storytelling can do that, no question. In any medium, it can do it in a book.
Sure.
But VR has a much lower hurdle to get you engaged in the experience in the story because of the amount of because of how saturated your nervous system is. And with our technology, our users tend to forget. I'll say it two ways. They tend to forget that the apparatus is there. In other words, at some point, you're just there, and the hardware melts away. There's nothing on your face. You don't see a screen. You're just there. And we've had press report watching our live sports content, our NBA content in particular, and have reported recalling the experience as having been there. Or in some cases, with some sports journalists, they've said, I attended 8 games this season, regular season, in person, and I attended another 8 in virtual reality, and right now I can't remember which one's which. I really can't remember and recollecting. And that's kind of the power of this this technology.
Yeah.
Which sort of gets you a little bit of pause when you think about that experience with Resident Evil, right? You want to, in some cases with some content, you want to be able to separate what you actually experience from what was
God, yes.
synthetic.
Just really quickly, we only have about 2.5 minutes left, but yeah, I played Resident Evil 1. Capcom kind of had some parameters. Number 1, play the game 2D. Just play it like you normally would. Then flip on the headset for the second go-around and notice the marked difference in the terror. It's like a whole new game. And so, I mean, it was just really, really an interesting experience, and I had a lot of fun with it. Unfortunately, they wouldn't let me keep their nice little prototype HUD to wear and stuff like that. So, kudos to them for letting me borrow it, but shame on them for taking it back. Go ahead, Eric.
Dave, is there any danger to any of this as we continue to blur the lines between reality, quote-unquote, and unreality? I mean, this is another step in that direction. Do we ever get to the point when we're moving from the virtual reality toward the reality where the line becomes blurred permanently, where we really can't tell the difference?
Technologically, yes. The answer is yes, that there'll be a convergence, and it's not terribly far in the future. I don't want to prognosticate, but I can tell you that our expectation is, at least visually and acoustically, there will be a time in the not-too-distant future where you'll put the equipment on your head and the visual experience will actually get better than it was with the naked eye and optical light. So from a technological, just pure hardware component, yes, it's going to happen where you won't be able to distinguish. You'll know you have something on your head. Cognitively, you'll still be aware of it.
Yeah.
But to your point about safety, there is an obligation, absolutely. Even now with the knowledge that some of our users remember the experience of watching our content as if they were there, particularly our live shows. Specifically our live shows. So there's absolutely an obligation to be aware of that and to be somewhat careful. And in being careful, what I really mean is we don't know. We as an industry don't completely have our arms wrapped around the impact of this technology. Right? These are early days. This stuff's been out a very short amount of time. It's been in consumers' hands a very short amount of time, and it's really powerful. Really powerful. It can evoke massive emotional responses, and there's an obligation on content producers to be careful, to be aware of sort of audience impact.
Sure.
And on the gaming side, in terms of sort of how the gaming industry has self-policed itself with violence, I think that kind of thing is going to be even more important. Because exposure to violence in VR can be very, very.
Yes.
It can leave a mark on your psyche, and so it definitely requires industry sort of self-policing.
Yeah, and that will come. It's just such a new, and it's in its infancy.
That's right.
And again, everybody, check out NextVR at www.nextvr.com. And, of course, it's been our honor to talk with Dave Cole, the CEO of that fine company, and we look forward to more content being put out. Go check out the episodes, check out the trailers, all that kind of good stuff, again, at nextvr.com. Until then, Eric, man, we're at the end of another show, and we'd like to thank everybody for tuning in and supporting the show, man. We are, again, the #1 show of its kind out there, so we want to give a big thanks to everybody. But until then, take care of each other, love each other, and check out some VR.
Thank you for listening to this edition of After Hours AM, and please remember to like us on Facebook and also follow us over on Twitter.